What's up, Kingdom of Rock? We're live here today. It is July 9th, 2020, and I'm here with my co-host, Michael Melinda. How's it going, Mike?
Everything's groovy.
How's things in San Fran?
It is sunny and hot, and no zombie apocalypse at my door, so I think that's good.
Okay, that's good. You got the baseball bat ready in case something happens?
No, but I've watched a lot of Walking Dead, so I do know how to take care of zombies.
Okay, good. Well, we're here today with bass player Tony Gray. Tony's really played with a lot of greats, John McLaughlin, Hiromi, like just bazillions of awesome musicians. And Tony's also an entrepreneur. He's got a great bass academy called Tony Gray Bass Academy. And welcome to the show, Tony Gray. How's it going, brother?
Good, man. Thank you. Nice to meet you guys. Appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming on. When we were talking before we were in the green room, you were let's talk about your bass academy a little bit. You kind of used the pandemic to kind of retool it. So could you maybe tell the Kingdom of Rock audience, how you originally envisioned it and how you, revised it for the next step?
Well, it's been kind of an ongoing process. I mean, I actually started this idea with Nick actually about 10 years ago. We were fishing around the idea of doing a bass and guitar school, and he ended up going into the Indian music world, like learn Indian music, I think it was. And then I went into like just a bass academy because the content that we were coming up with was just too vast. So it was like what happened was I just kind of went away with a couple of entrepreneur friends in London. We just rented a cottage on the beach, on the seaside for like a few days and just kind of brainstormed together. One guy was doing weight loss milkshake stuff, juicing and all that stuff. One guy was doing LinkedIn. This other guy was doing like a guru entrepreneur, like helping people develop business ideas and strategies. And I was doing this music academy. So really just kind of locked ourselves away for a few days and just brainstormed the entire blueprint for it. And then, so I just filmed like 800 videos over a 6-month period, and then just put it all online, like a whole curriculum, almost like as if you were going to school. So it was like basically a 2-year course. But then as I started doing it, I was realizing that people were coming to the academy because I was playing with the cats that I was playing with. So they wanted like a lot of advanced stuff and specific things. And I was geared more towards like fundamental creative learning, like building good habits from the beginning and developing it into musicianship and all that. So I've just been kind of adding bits and pieces over the years, but during this lockdown, and like the intuitive thought would have been to promote it and try to get a lot of students during the lockdown. But I thought in the long run, it would be better for me to kind of use this time to restructure it and make it a more thorough curriculum, like for beginner, advanced, intermediate, whatever level, whatever style. So I just kind of really expanded it. So it's probably twice the size now. And the material that's not in the academy, I did like an extensive book and kind of play along DVD or whatever to go along with it. So it's just mega amounts of work, basically.
No, it sounds massive and huge, but that's an interesting thing too, where you come up with a curriculum in your head that you feel would be valuable to a bassist growth, and then it comes down to like, oh, I'm Tony Gray. People want to jump in because I played with Hiromi or I played with John McLaughlin. I mean, and I guess as you said, sometimes the two goals are a little bit not exactly on the same path.
Well, the reason why I really wanted to do this is because I started playing very late, like when I was 19, something like that. And I always struggled with like the injuries, like the overuse. So I was doing like 12 hours a day, getting really bad injuries, then having to reduce the time I practice, losing focus, becoming too obsessed. Nick just texted me.
Yeah, he's coming on.
So I became really obsessed with like learning music and trying to like catch up with everybody else so quickly, because basically within a year I went to Berklee College of Music, and I was really quite terrible at the time, and I didn't feel like I belonged there, and a lot of anxieties came with that. So I just kind of documented my growth, like how can I get from here to here quicker, like how can I catch up, and having to practice less time because of the injuries as well. So I had to kind of be really smart with my time and find a way to be really focused on exactly what goal I'm going for. Mm-hmm. So when I started doing the academy, I was like, my concept was to unlearn everything and relearn it in a creative way. So that was kind of the fundamental of it. And then people liked it, but then they were like, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? So I just thought, okay, I'm just going to do it all. Now I know exactly what I'm doing because I've been refining it over the years. And the way I looked at it was essentially, I'll not teach anything unless I feel like I've got some level of mastery over it. So what I do is I really rigorously practice a concept, try to get as creative as possible with it. And as soon as I'm at that moment, then I'll record the video, and then I'll move on to the next concept. So really, it's kind of a timeline of my growth, really. Because whatever I'm teaching is what I'm learning in that moment.
That's cool. So it's kind of like Grant Cardone talks about this in one of his books. He says that, you know, he doesn't write books for other people. He writes books for himself that other people benefit from.
Exactly.
You know?
Because every time you read a book, you're always like, oh, I wish it had this. I wish it did this. I wish it did that. All right, I've learned this book. And then I feel like I've just gone through the motions of learning the book, but it's almost like just reading. You know, you finish it and you're like, well, I can't do exactly what that book was saying I would be able to do. And then you get another book, and then you end up with a bookshelf full of books, which I have every music book on earth. And I would just read through them and never feel like I was any different as a musician after I'd finished them. So I really wanted to kind of develop a curriculum that helped me, essentially. And if I could prove to me that I could do it, then I felt justified in sharing that information.
Yeah.
It's a mind blower to me that you felt, so paranoid about getting to school, because obviously, look where your career's gone. You played with some amazing people. Obviously, even at the beginning when you probably felt you sucked, there was something there that was special about your playing, or else you never would have got where you got to. So it's just to me that, I'm nervous about this. My shoulder hurts. I can't practice enough. I got to catch up. And then it all ended up just awesome, kind of, right?
Well, I think it just because it came about from like a traumatic situation, because I was in the army in England, and then I was in a car accident and broke my back. And then it was when I was recovering from the back injury, then I was given a bass to kind of help pass the time. So it became like a medicine, and it became like an obsession and an addiction. And then it became like almost like I don't want to fail at it. I want to, I'd kind of lost my job. I'd lost my direction in life. And I was nervous, I guess, to take a leap in something unknown. So I was just trying to be as good as I could be in such a short amount of time, because my mind was kind of going through that trauma, I guess.
Well, so do you, if you're recommending action steps and ways to build a business for other artists out there, they want to start their own academy or their own membership site or something where they're, getting some passive income coming in. Do you think that all of that was out of what happened to you, or did you have to course correct yourself on the way? Because we get doubts and fears, and you hit walls and you're like, ugh, what did you do to get through all the ups and downs of that journey?
Trust in the process. I really just let go, because I had a lot of fear and anxiety, and I just literally because I couldn't play for a couple of months because of the injury. My arm was really cramped up, and during that time I really thought okay, how can I develop quicker? How can I get from what do I need to practice, what do I not need to practice? And then I started associating with all the anxieties that musicians get, like the ego. You go on the road and some guys are off the chain with the ego. Some guys are too timid and then they get walked all over. And you've got this dance between management and artist and being happy to be on stage, but at the same time getting exploited in some way. And So I just wanted to kind of like have a system that kind of like if some beginner was coming in, that they would like understand that we all have the same fears. Just we use different vehicles to obtain the need or whatever. So I just kind of wanted to be a mentor in that way, you know, like just kind of say it's okay to have creative blocks. It's okay to do this. It's okay to have these fears about not getting a gig or how to try to get a gig. And I just felt like that was my role because of some of the mentorship that I had on the way. It was kind of very similar to that in a way, especially with John McLaughlin.
I mean, specifically with John. I mean,
yeah, John was a huge mentor of mine. He was not telling me what notes to play, but he was just helping me with my state of mind and you know how to maybe listen to music or to open my ears to new music. Another guy was Kenwood Denard, you know, the drummer.
No.
From in John's band, you mean?
No, it's Kenwood Denard's like he's a great fusion jazz drummer. He plays a lot with what's the guy who does all the tapping? Stanley
Jordan.
Yeah, he plays a lot with Stanley Jordan and Maceo Parker and everybody really. So, but he was also a professor at Berkeley. He played with Jacko. He was on Jacko's DVD. So that's where most people, like bass players, especially know him from that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was a professor at Berkeley, and he was kind of a real mentor to me. You know, he used to go for walks around the town with me and talk about philosophy in his life and how he approaches things creatively and educates himself in different areas and how it all works, comes to ground and all that stuff. So he introduced me actually to a lot of Indian musicians, and that's kind of really what John obviously associated with a lot of Indian musicians, but Kenwood was really the one who got me playing in that style.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about the anxiety in the business. You know, sometimes you have to deal with ego. Sometimes you have to deal with management. There's the there's the art commerce thing that's always going on. Was your experience with Indian musicians or that mindset a little different than the typical Western musicians, or is there a divide, or is it just kind of all the same and people are people and individuals have different, you know, ways of reacting to being a professional musician?
I think, you know, it's an interesting question really, because I think your environment kind of shapes you as well over time with habit, you know, like what kind of fans you get and what kind of accolade you get for doing what you do. You know, how much money and how so much success you have, but you might be insecure as a musician behind all of that success. And then you get like the broke jazz musicians who come along and like kicking ass, but you know, it's like this dynamic, you know what I mean?
How do you
intimidation and also like not wanting to lose face in a way.
You know, there's that you know, old blues thing about, you know, cutting contests, and even in the jazz world, you know, kind of blowing somebody off the stage. I mean, do Indian musicians, you know, are they that ferocious as well? Like they come out there and say, hey, okay.
I've only experienced love in that community. It's the music is like a part of culture. It's taken very seriously, you know. It's not like I haven't had many experiences where it's just been like, hey, let's jam, and it's like always very focused, very serious, it's a spiritual moment, if you like, you know what I mean? But it's not. It's a little different, I guess, the scene, you know. But yeah, when I played with Indian musicians, I always felt they had so much respect for their instrument, you know, like Yu Srinivas was always opened his mandolin case and he was always like sending his blessings and then picking it up, and you know, it was beautiful, really.
Yeah, I've heard if you want to get yelled at by Ravi Shankar, step over an instrument. That's what.
Did you not slap George Harrison or something?
Yeah, I've heard some stories.
Yeah, that's the serious part of it, you know. It's like you got to respect the instrument and never show it your sole or your foot.
It's also interesting. It seems like in your curriculum, you know, because you're talking about a lot of high concept stuff. It's not just notes on the page, or it's not just here's what you do to get your technique faster or whatever. You're talking about, you know, having big ears and listening, and you know, some of the things you mentioned that you know, some of your mentors have passed on to you. It wasn't necessarily all about, you know, da 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 da. You know, it was about the outside, the broader sense of making music.
Yeah.
How do you feel that typically informed your actual creative process?
Well, it's a process, but the beauty of it is you can't, like, I learned that you can't change your ability just because you want to. Even if you practice for 10 hours a day for a week, you're not going to really change. You might actually digress in a way because you're oversaturating your mind. So I think if you realize that everything's like a process, like if you want to lose weight, hey, Nick.
Hey, Nick.
So if you want to lose weight, if you want to quit a habit, whatever you want to do, it's a process. You know what I mean? You have to go through like tribulation or whatever to get to where you want to be. So as long as you're using whatever you're learning in a creative way immediately, like so as simple as like learning a scale, just learn how to connect those notes and learn how to make melody out of it. As long as you're really focusing on, because what a lot of musicians do is they'll just learn a scale, then they'll learn a different key, they'll learn a different key, they'll learn a different key, but they never spend the time to kind of really bask in that, them grouping of notes and try to understand like how these notes connect with chord tones and how you can make phrases and how simple it actually is. But when you overlook that creative step and you just dive into something that you perceive to be complicated, then that's when you get frustrated, and that's when you end up developing licks. And when you play licks, you know, you start, you know, you're cheating yourself, and you know you're cheating the audience, and maybe that's where the ego comes from. So what I like to do is, you can't change your ability, so you may as well learn it gradually, like add a concept each time, go back, do it again, but add a new concept, and always focus on the new concept, but using the other elements as like a foundation, and just keep building and building and building. And actually over a year of doing that every day, just for a couple hours, the growth is like ridiculous. And you never have to rely on licks because you learn how to hear everything you play.
That's awesome. Matt, we should introduce Nick, who's just zoomed into us.
No,
really
he's late. We're not going to introduce nothing.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding, bro. What's going on, Nick? Nick had some internet issues.
yeah. I've just moved house, and it's 1 a.m. here, and obviously I knew the show, but a few issues getting online. I don't actually have internet here yet, so I'm having to use my phone. So anyway, yeah, I'm here. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. Hi, Matt. Hi, Michael. Hey, Tony, mate.
This is actually Nick's second time on the show. Nick was one of my early guests back in the day.
Yeah, that was like
back in the day, whatever that means.
3 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. Well, I just wanted to say Nick is internet entrepreneur. He's virtuoso guitarist, musician, plays a lot of different instruments, and he also is you know what? Why can't I say this word? Accompanist with Ravi and Anushka Shankar. My good friend Nick Abel. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me here, man. Yeah, you look well.
Thank you. I've been getting sun.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah. So how's the weather there are you in Newcastle? Is that right?
I'm in Newcastle, yeah, and actually me and Tony go back a long time. Tony is also from Newcastle, you know, he's known as a Geordie as well, you know. And but yeah, I'm just moved house. I'm living on a third floor now in an apartment building, and it's like crazy hot. The heat is crazy, which we're not used to here, you know. So yeah, the weather is a bit unusual.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty nice here in LA. Obviously hot, you know. Mike, It's hot there. Do you have AC in there, Mike, or are you just suffering?
No, we just have a little fan. You know, we're it's kind of a No, there's no wealth of air conditioning here.
Kind of reminds me of India, you know, when I used to be in India and I was living at the Shankar home. And when I first got there, it was cold, right? It was like early January. It was cold, it was foggy, and I was like, whoa, I didn't expect this. It got hot pretty quick, and by about March, you know, like the house had air conditioning and all of that, you know, a huge place. But my room didn't have air conditioning, it just had like a fan. So I'm practicing at like 6 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, 8 at night, and it gets to the point where it's so hot. The sitar is like slipping out of my hands because my hands are so wet from the sweat, right? And I would go and take a cold shower. There wasn't really a shower. We just had a bucket, right, that you fill with water. But I would take a cold shower and then immediately just be like, and I actually had to leave 3 weeks earlier than planned because I couldn't take the heat. And I couldn't do anything because the instrument was just slipping out of my hands, you know.
And then you're tougher than me. I could not handle that at all. The first time the instrument slipped off my leg and my hands got that sweat, I would go, let's call a flight home.
So I did that for 6 years in a row.
Well, I just wanted to say Nick's a great entrepreneur. He's also does a lot of online stuff. As Tony was saying, you guys kind of work together on the academy.
Yeah. I mean, our friendship goes back a long time. And when I was getting into all of this, I didn't really have any money behind me or anything, so I couldn't really buy any courses. But I was registering for free webinars, getting ebooks, joining email lists, reading stuff online. And me and Tony just were kind of at the same point, and we were sharing stuff together, and we were discovering this whole new world at the same time, bouncing off each other, you know, like. So yeah, and then we both went and did our own sites, and then we just over the years have always shared kind of ideas and shared different things. But yeah.
Nick builds websites, membership sites for musicians. He's got Andy James Guitar Academy. He's built one for Frank Gambale. You know what else, Nick?
Daniel Tompkins, a vocalist from the band Tesseract. I did a site for Indian classical music. They are the main ones, and worked as a consultant for a lot of other people as well, doing different things. People who just want a bit of advice or what have you, and a few outside of the music industry as well that I've been involved with too. But my passion is the guitar. You know, really, that's what I've put the most into. You know, with Andy and the relaunch that we're sitting on. Putting out to the world.
When's that getting ready to happen?
So that's getting ready to happen right now. Obviously, you know about it. We've talked about it a lot. But for anyone out there, I can talk about it now to a degree. I personally, me and Andy have recruited a small elite group of what we consider as players and guitar geeks. 38 of the world's best rock and metal guitar players to join the site as guest contributing artists. And
me and Mike didn't get a call for that. No, I'm just kidding.
I actually don't even know what you guys are talking about. I was out of that. Andy who? I missed that.
Andy James. Andy James Guitar Academy. Nick built that.
Okay.
So you can imagine, I mean, I'm not a website builder, you know, but I have a team and I manage the whole thing and involved in every aspect of it, you know, apart from sitting there in front of the camera, every single aspect. So we're gearing up to relaunch that now. It's been ready since about April, but then with the pandemic and all of that, we decided to shelve it for a little while. It's taken over 2 years to do it. I've done all the work by myself. Andy has just been focusing on his playing in his own career, which is evident by his latest releases, and he's just about to release a new album very, very soon as well. But it's been a lot of work, you know yourself, Michael, dealing with different guitar players and managing people and writing to people and getting them to do this or that, or it's a lot of work just to do that, you know what I mean? Just sitting at the email and going on video calls and all of that, it takes up so much time. And
I was kind of jealous of both of you guys, especially Tony saying, you know, he did 800 videos. I had a huge staff at, you know, Guitar Player and Guitar World. And I couldn't come up with, you know, a tenth of that stuff half the time. So,
well, I got to say, with regards to Tony, you know,
work ethic, that's crazy.
Tony, I've been lucky to work with some great people, like obviously Pandit Ravi Shankar. I also work with Frank Gambale, who was an idol of mine from a kid, great educator, you know, and Tony here, like I've known Tony since I was like 18, you know, and seeing him develop from breaking his back.
Have you guys played on the same stage?
No, just after breaking his back, you know, like he didn't play an instrument and then learn from nothing, you know, much later in life, you know, and develop really quick. And what an artist and player he is. But like as an educator as well, like he's really like, there's like 3 people in the world who I would say who are on this crazy level of innovation, not just as a player, but as a developing the instrument in education, pedagogy, or whatever the term is. Pedagogy, is that the term? Set kind of a sense, pedagogy. Really pushing the boundaries. Yeah. Tony's one of them because he wrote this scripture, and I've seen it, you know, like put a pile like this, you know, so systematic, so thorough. Nobody's actually sat and done that. Maybe they have, but they're not doing anything with it. But he's the only one that I'm aware of in the world that's sat and done that.
Has anybody watched all the videos yet, Tony?
I don't know. I don't think I have. Thank you, Nick, by the way.
You should,
Dude, there's some
you should have a little trophy you give people if they go through all 800 of them or something.
Dude, there's some kid in a closet somewhere that signed up for your course, and one day he's just going to be like, all right, I finished it. And he's just going to step on the world stage, and everyone's going to be like, whoa.
It's the kind of thing that like I've had students for years, like the same students, and they've definitely gone through the majority of the work, but it's the kind of thing that once you get to a certain point, you just become so much more free that you don't need to kind of keep referencing back. You just start developing your own way of developing your own voice. It's just really just enforcing habits, really. And I'm just like, I just thought the best way for me to demonstrate that was by proving it, by demonstrating it. And then so it's an obsessive amount of work, but I'm like obsessive with work like that. It's not the healthiest, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and I would never disrespect any teaching, curriculum, because all of it's got its own values. But just what we discussed earlier before Nick popped in is, your struggles and your own paranoia and how you develop, the big ears and to take the things from your mentors. It's more than just notes on a page. And I think that, that's an awesome way to give someone a full view of what they're, going to look for when they step into, if they really want to be a working musician, what they're going to be confronted with.
Just want to be a friend, really. That's pretty much the only goal that I had, and then things obviously spiral from there. But as long as I understood, like I made a decision when I started it all that I wanted to know, like if it became successful and if I made a good living out of it, then what do I want to be as how do I want to be perceived? Like, how do I want to feel? Like, how do I want people around me to think about me? Like all these things. And I think like, it just makes you kind of more moral with your decisions. You know what I mean? So if you always make it about the student and not yourself, then you can do it with a clear conscience, and then it attracts good things. I guess it's a journey. Like, I mean, it's just a journey of, I've come so far now that there's no turning back, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nick, I wanted to ask you, did you start out the same way a lot of people start out, playing your favorite records, then all of a sudden Indian music dropped in on you, or were you in the whole Indian scene from the get-go?
No, so I started guitar when I was 13. I got a cheap guitar from my cousin because my parents couldn't afford to get me one, but I wanted to play since I was about 7 or 8. And there was no internet then or anything, and my parents didn't have money for lessons. So I had a friend who played cello, and he just got a guitar. And I just, for the first 2 years, right, I played with one finger like this. It didn't occur to me that I could use other fingers. I just played chords like this. And I loved it so much, And then after 2 years, my parents gave me some lessons during the school holidays, and I went on from there. And then I got a paper round. That was the job that I had when I was a kid, a paper round delivering newspapers every night. And then I discovered guitar magazines in the newsagent shop where I delivered the paper. So I used to get a guitar magazine, Guitar Player magazine, Guitar World. They are the best ones. And even now, I've got a collection. Learned so much from them, And then I really wanted to study with a master, and then actually it's funny, the day I left college here in Newcastle, I attended the local college. It was the Thursday, it was the day to get the classified jobs in the local newspaper, and I bought the local newspaper, and who's on the front cover? Tony's on the front cover. This guy, local guy from Whitley Bay, Newcastle, who broke his back in an accident, learned bass, mentored by his uncle John McLaughlin. I was like, whoa, John McLaughlin. Wow, he's like one of my idols, right? I love his music, love his playing. Oh, I didn't realize this. All right. Goes to Berkeley. Oh, I want to do that. Like, that's what I want to do. So I tried to do that. Didn't happen. I got 2 scholarships. I did a lot, to try to get the money. Didn't happen. And then eventually I got a job working in a bank. And then studying on my own, just learning stuff. I was getting really a lot into jazz improvisation and trying to learn on my own, buying books and listening to so much music And that's all I did, really. I was a hermit. I didn't go out. And then a friend of mine who played bass in a band, he had a sitar. And I bought this album, Ravi Shankar, Philip Glass Passages. That was the first Indian music album that I bought. And I got really into this music, you know. And I was listening to Pat Metheny a lot of the time, like stuff like Secret Story, like really quite cinematic type music like that, kind of.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to research about Indian music. I still really wanted to go to somewhere to learn. Like Berkeley was really the one, or Musicians Institute in Los Angeles was the other. I looked at others, but just the money factor was I just couldn't make it happen, you know. And I started getting into Indian music. I bought a cheap sitar, didn't have a clue, got a couple of books, but it's not really something that's written down that you learn from a book. You have to go to a guru to learn, you know.
Yeah.
And then I discovered the Ravi Shankar Center in New Delhi, which was a building that was getting made at the time. It turns out at the end it was just a home for the Shankars to live in, with an archive, recording studio, an amphitheater, actual rooms for students, because artists in Indian classical music culture would always have students, what they're called disciples, but it's basically just a student live with them, right, over a long period. That's how it works.
So did you take a leap of faith then and just decide this interest in Indian music, you were going to go to New Delhi? And
so, well, it didn't really work out like that. I mean, it's something that I would love to do. I didn't think that it would ever happen. I didn't really try for it to happen, but I did send an email and asking about it, and then I got a response from the tour manager, and then over a period of 10 months, I don't know why, I'd never met them before, nothing. Never been to a concert before of that, or nothing. They didn't know who I was. Guruji, who's the term that we use to address Ravi, his wife got in touch and just said, look, if you really want to learn, you can't really do it in the UK. You have to come to India, leave everything behind, go through all the discipline and all of this kind of thing, and find a guru and all of that. And to me, that was nothing, because I was kind of doing that anyway at home. I was like a hermit, you know, just living and breathing music. It wasn't an effort. It was just a natural thing, you know. And when I got that email, I was like, well, that doesn't frighten me or anything. I would love to do it, and I would jump at the chance. And the next email I got was, right, okay, I need to call you. So she called me up, and she basically just said, we'll rent you a room in the house for a short period, which is the center that was just finished at that time. We'll get you a teacher, one of Ravi Guruji's like more senior students who lives in Delhi. They'll come round, they'll teach you. So you'll live with us, you'll be at our house, you'll eat with us, right? You'll be around. And if Ravi likes you, if you're good, if you're talented, then he might teach you, right? And that was it. When she said that, I was like, I'm coming to India. So
that story
is that a movie?
It's like the Karate Kid for musicians.
So then it was like, this
Pretty
was
cool.
in about September, right? And then I wasn't due to go there till January. So I was like, all right, so what can I do during these few months to prepare, right? Because I'm like thinking, oh my God, like I'm going to India, like this, and I'm going to be living in Ravi Shankar's house. I'm going to be probably learning from him and learning. And I was like, what can I do? She just said, don't do anything, because you'll pick up bad habits. They'll teach you from scratch, complete scratch. And I was like, that was even more terrifying, because I was itching to do something. So basically, 2nd of January 2003, I left my job. I left my girlfriend, who I'd been with for a while at the time. And I went to India with a suitcase. That was it. 3 weeks later, I was taken on as a student properly. And I was accompanying Ravi and Anushka in a concert in Bombay. And then again in Delhi, then again in Bangalore. And I was there 3.5 months. And at the end, I was accepted as a disciple, if you like. And I continued that for 6 years, going to India each winter for 3 to 4 months. And then between the year, I would go on tour with them around Europe, America, the Far East, and also stay with them in their home in California. So after the first 3.5 months, well, even instantly, really, but once I completed that first cycle, and then I was taken on tour later, where I would continue learning on stage, off stage, in an airport, at the shop, you know, like wherever, anywhere, right? A lesson with Guruji could happen anywhere, and does happen anywhere all the time. I decided to take it seriously, and for 6 years. I didn't play the guitar, didn't pick it up. I just listened to Indian classical music, which I loved, and just completely just surrounded my entire being and aura with that. You know, I took it seriously. And then later, I ended up doing stuff with Anushka. She did an album called Rise, which was nominated for a Grammy, and she needed someone to do all the like electric, because it was like a world music album with electronics. And the guy who did it, Gaurav, who's from this duo in India called the Medieval Pundits, biggest electronic act in India, he couldn't do the tour. So at the time, I just bought a laptop, a Mac with like Logic and Ableton and a little keyboard, and I was learning a bit about that because I wanted to learn production. And then Anushka one day was like, "Oh, could you do the tour?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I had a few months to prepare. So I did that. Gaurav showed me a few things. And I was actually going to do that with a guitar. And I got an endorsement from Gordon Guitars, again, linked through John McLaughlin, because John McLaughlin did his DVD.
Yeah.
And it's got these RMC pickups on it where you could trigger stuff. And I thought, I'll get myself one. So I got an endorsement through them. And but I didn't have enough time to prepare. It was too hard for me, you know, and I ended up not doing it with the guitar and just did it with the keyboard. So I got involved with that, which led to doing, you know, music for TV, videos, feature film and other things. And then it just went on from there, you know. And then later I got back into the guitar, you know. And but yeah, for six years solid, I was with the Shankars probably 80% of the year. And I would come home for a few weeks and then go away again, and then go away for 3 months and then come home for a few weeks and then go away. And it was like that for about 6 years.
It's amazing.
But that is a movie. You know, you just send an email to someone, they don't even know you. You know.
Yeah, it's just like
they could have just said, "Nah, you should stay in England. Thank you very much."
Amazing what you get if you ask for it. Like,
this is the thing, right? There's so many things in my life have happened. Obviously, it's because I've asked for it.
Exactly. It's
Courage.
what happens when you ask.
It's just so simple. Man. Obviously, you have to be able to deliver the goods or step up.
Yeah,
when the opportunity arises, there's a lot of people who do get opportunities, but they don't step up through fear or whatever reason. Like, I've got no fear with stuff like that. I'll just step up. That's normal to me, though. You know, that's just the way that my mind just works like that. To me, but yeah,
that's great, dude. When I first moved here to LA, I hadn't played a show before. And, you know, I'm trying to start up my music career and everything. And my buddy has a podcast convention, and they have like this meetup in LA, about 300 people. I was like, bro, why don't you let me play the background music for the meetup? And he's like, all right, man, you can do it. I'm like, sure, dude. I had nothing. I had 0 songs, 0 ideas, anything. And I just went in the studio, my home studio, made a bunch of backing tracks, practice over them, just made up stuff, you know, creative type stuff, and, you know, kind of a chill vibe. But it's kind of like people underestimate the power of courage,
and they underestimate themselves and their own ability.
Yeah, man. I hammered out those 13 tracks. I played a great venue. I got lots of compliments and offers to do shows. And it's like, and I didn't do it. I don't deserve that according to the traditional way of climbing the ladder, paying your dues, and that. It's just courage, just going out there and not being afraid and putting yourself at risk. And that's what an entrepreneur is. Someone that puts himself at risk, more risk than normal to make money.
Yeah, you know? Financial gain.
Yeah.
You put yourself in a position where you have to deliver.
Yeah.
There's no way out. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, it's like painting yourself in a corner.
It is scary for so many people, and I'm not sure whether you can truly learn how to be courageous or not. I mean, and you know, you guys have been in some pretty heavy situations, and as you mentioned earlier, Tony, you know, sometimes you do come into these things and there is some trepidation about whether you're going to fit in or whatever. You have to get past that somehow. You know, but as Nick said, you also have to have that something going where you can't just say, you know, it can't just be ego where it's like, yeah, man, I've got courage, I can do this, and then all of a sudden you step in there and you just shit all over yourself. You know?
I think it's like you got to keep the dream bigger than the fear, if you like.
Yeah.
The dream what? Sorry?
The dream has to be bigger than the fear.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah,
true. When you start doing the work, the fear reduces because you realize that you can't do it.
Man, every time I get a new song to learn, I always think to myself, there's no way I can do this. Impossible. And then you just kind of dive into it from the necessity and then deadlines, and then all of a sudden you can do it. Yep. So my mind still acts like that. So it's almost like I have to prove myself to myself every day, if you like.
But obviously that hasn't held you back. You know, someone else that might be the fear of having to prove themselves every day would paralyze them. You know. Yeah,
that's true. But it's funny, but I've never kind of moved past that fear. Initially, there's always a fear there. You know, I've never learned how to like not have that fear, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And then I always get that surprise when I can do something. That's the weirdest thing about it. It's always like a surprise. Oh shit, I could do that.
Vi talked about that a lot in his interview, or at least in interviews of the past, where he would get so excited about being able to play something that he couldn't play before. Mm. You know, that was his kind of a reward for the effort. Some people really like that, and you can, like, I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think as far as like, you know, average musician out there, maybe like a local regional act, and they're like, man, I've got a day job and I've got, you know, all this responsibility. I've got a family, but I really just want to play music for a living. Like, what would you say to somebody like that, you know, has responsibilities and things that tie them down? You know, what could they do to get out of that and change their paradigm, change their passive income so that they can do more of the things that they want to do with their time?
I don't know, like one thing, like one guy I used to teach, he was a father of 5 and his wife was in the army. So he lived on an army base and he had 5 kids, and he's like, I really want to learn bass. And I was like, how much can you practice a day? He said 15 minutes. I'm like, 15 minutes? But, you know, that we just worked out a little schedule for him that he could just do every day and improve every day. And then one of the things that he did on Sunday was he just went to church and like kind of joined in with a church band and just kind of as a volunteer. And then years later, he's like full paid member of the church band. And you know what I mean? But it's just like, like Nick was saying, just jumping in, putting yourself out there. Just, it's all about the community and community at the end of the day. And you never, you know, as bad as you feel about yourself and like that you can never do this, you can't do that. Every step that you make is like a step closer to that reality. It's like that Tony Robbins thing where he says, do that hour of power walk. Where
just take action, just start.
Yeah. So
don't think about it too much, just do it.
Yeah. So what I do is I'll go for a walk, and then for 20 minutes, I'll be like grateful for whatever comes into my head, like whoever. And then the next 20 minutes is like, where do I want to be? What do I want to achieve? And then the last 20 minutes is what can I do today to get a little bit closer? So I think if you get in that frame of mind, then, you know, time opens up, you know, like opportunities open up, and you can have a job and you can practice 15 minutes a day if that's what you got. But it's all about the will, and you get there, you know.
Nick, what do you think about that? Like advice for people trying to get out of the daily grind?
I think now's a better time than ever with social media, with affordability for music production equipment and being able to create your own things. But I think a lot of it is just, I think a lot of people are stuck in this, a bit like when you start a business, a lot of people do a business plan and a research period, which I think is important, but it's not necessary. And get stuck in that too much, and it almost becomes like a PhD, like they're just doing research, but they're not actually doing anything to move towards where they want to be. And I think people just need to, again, like Tony Robbins is big teacher for me, you know, and just so simple things, but things that people don't really do is take action, like just start doing something that works towards it, right? Like where you are, where you want to be, but what's in the gap? What are the things that you need to do? Or what are the things that you can do? Or what are the things that you have access to that will allow you to do one of these tasks now, today, right now, or in the next hour? And then just start the process. And then once you start the process, then other things will just open up.
That's when I got that. I started jamming and playing with Mike Stern a bit. And that was basically born from that idea. I was just thinking, like, what could I do to get closer to that goal every day, you know. And then so I was like, okay, make a CD. Okay, so I made a CD. Okay, go to a Mike Stern gig. Make sure you meet him. Give him your CD. Ask him if he wants to jam sometime. And just like having that like idea of like how can I get from there to there, and then kind of figuring out the best path to get to it, and then just doing it. Kind of,
it's like a strategy, right? It's simple. It's so simple, but people just tend not to do it, or they reach an obstacle, or they get rejected and they stop. They don't try again a different way. And this is one of the biggest things I got from Tony Robbins. It's so obvious.
Well, yeah.
So many great things are obvious, just people don't do them, you know?
Yeah, and at that time I didn't have a CD or anything. It took me a year. It was like a year later that I was in that position to do that. But it provoked me to like have my own voice and try to like create my own world that somebody might want to hire me based on what my vibe is or whatever, as opposed to kind of moving to New York and just hustling in the scene for gigs. You know what I mean? It's just such a hard way to kind of get anywhere, you know?
It's so interesting, the contrast between the two of you guys. Like Nick is more kind of like the free spirit type where he's just going to like pull up his roots and just go on an adventure, right? And Tony, you seem a little more systematic and calculating in some of your goals and planning
Tony
things
did
out.
that as well, right? You know, when you went to Berkeley, I mean, I've never really asked you, what was it like, you know, having been in the army and that was your passion of what you wanted to do, and then you had the accident and you got the bass to kind of, I think, was it your stepdad who got you the bass or something, yeah? Yeah. And then, but what was that like though? You know, like you were thrown into this whole other world, a bit like me when I decided to go to India. It was still music, but it was still another world. I never thought that I would go there. I never thought I would do that.
Oh, it was terrible.
It was hard, you know, as well as it's been such a great thing. People kind of look at all the positives of it, but it was very hard. It wasn't easy.
Well, I remember I was put in an ensemble because what they do is to audition you or whatever, and I had like a prepared piece. Or I don't know if it was a prepared piece, like some classical piece and then some improvisation or whatever, but I didn't understand the concept of improvising. So I learned a solo, like a saxophone solo, and I just played it with the ensemble, was playing the tune, and I was just playing the solo along with it. And I think they thought I improvised it. You know, like, wow, this guy's great, man. Let's put him in a good level ensemble. So they put me in this ensemble, and then when I went to class, the teacher was like, okay, let's start with the blues, let's get familiar with each other. And they counted off. I didn't know what anything was, man. I didn't know how to play any notes. I didn't know what any scale really was. And then the guitarist actually said, here, I'll play bass. And he took the bass off me and played. And then they bunked me down into the worst ensemble. So it was kind of terrible, really. And then
the stories people don't tell. They only tell like, oh yeah, and then I got whisked away to this great thing, you know, like
totally paid my dues because also John McLaughlin recommended me to go there. So all the young musicians were like, hey, can you hook up with John? And thinking I'm like, great,
right?
Because of that association. So then when they found out I wasn't great, then I heard a few comments, you know, like guys kind of shit. So you know, there was like this expectation. It was immediately like
yeah.
So
people's perception versus reality and where you're at, and that you're also on a journey as well. But just because you associate with this person doesn't mean that you're great as well.
Yeah, but you know,
I had that as well. Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of mortifying in a way. But you know, then I got that pop gig, and that's where I really learned how to play bass and all that. So yeah, I go with the wind and all that, but just as I got older, I just wanted more stability and that, because when you're like having kids and all that and house, it's hard to kind of rely on touring, which then takes you away for 6 months of the year.
Yeah.
So more.
It's rough, man. It's not a good family situation.
Speaking of touring, Nick, I know you were going to come out to LA to do a pretty amazing show that got canceled recently.
Yeah. So
what's up with that, dude?
So April of this year was Pandit Ravi Shankar's 100th birthday, and there was a whole tour planned. The first show being in London at the Royal Festival Hall on his actual birthday, with Anushka Shankar, Nora Jones, who's his daughter, also Danny Harrison, Philip Glass, various disciples of Guruji, myself included, and then there was going to be a tour in America, when I was supposed to come to LA, and we were going to meet up. So there was like Walt Disney Concert Hall, Carnegie Hall, New York, San Diego Civic Theatre, and Chicago Symphony Center. So 4 shows, but quite big shows, you know. And then from there to India and various other places. And due to the pandemic, the whole thing was cancelled and postponed till well, we hope next year. So that was quite disappointing, you know.
Well, it's kind of like, I mean, it's disappointing that it is. It's kind of like you guys were saying, as far as, you know, to other people out there who may be listening, it's like we're kind of all on this, we're sitting in this on this deck chairs right now, you know. So if any of you out there are not, you know, working on whatever you want to work on to get where you want to get, shame on you.
Yeah, but also now it's such a good time, you know. Obviously, me and Tony and Matt as well, you know, are involved in digital domain and dealing with other ways to earn a living through music, you know, through education and digital products. And I must say, with the pandemic and people being at home and I guess being bored or whatever, despite people wanting to conserve their income and all of that, there's been a huge increase.
Well, actually, maybe
traffic, sales, interest, and
maybe you get a little more specific about that, Nick. I know we're kind of getting to the top of the hour, but you know, I think a lot of musicians just stopped and weren't thinking about these digital initiatives that they could use to actually make money. You know, obviously, you know, Tony's got his, you know, his lesson initiative, but I think you're speaking of more than just that. There's other things that you could do, right?
There's so much that people can do. You know, there's even off the shelf things. So if you don't want to go and build your own site, and most people now have got a camera or even an iPhone. We've shot stuff on an iPhone. That's good enough. You know, musicians can teach lessons, but a lot of people are a bit fearful of education. But there's a lot of other things that you can create as a musician for people, fans to enjoy. You know, there's a lot of stuff, you know. And I would urge anybody out there to just start creating content. And there's platforms out there like Patreon's a big one, massive one. Mm-hmm. And another one called Teachable, which is a massive one, which is off the shelf membership program. And Kajabi is another one. You don't necessarily need to have all this knowledge, especially if you've got fans, which a lot of musicians have, a lot of guitar players in our circle have. Then you don't need really to pay for advertising and get known. You just, if you've got fans, your fans are going to want to buy your content, right? So if you just make the content and put it in front of them, that's really as simple as what it is. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, but that's the nutshell of the actions that you need to take. And certainly in the pandemic, a lot of people are at home, you know, musicians aren't doing gigs. They're not making money from any other way, you know, and they're not making money off record sales really either, even though Bandcamp is up a lot. You know, there was a record deal with Bandcamp, but they made like so many million. I would urge any, you know, guitar players, bassists, musicians listening to create some content and get it up on Patreon or Teachable or one of these off-the-shelf programs, or go full-fledged and build their own site, you know, because it's an asset that you're going to own that's going to generate an income regardless of what's going on in the world, as long as the internet's here. And
what do you say to an artist that's like, look, man, I just want to be an artist. Like, I don't need that. I don't want that, you know, but they're struggling with money, and they're struggling with like having the flexibility to do what they want to do. Like, what would you say to like help them get out of that mindset, or to pivot in a way that would help them be beneficial?
You can still create content as an artist that's in different categories: education, for enjoyment, behind the scenes footage, so on and so on and so on. There's so many different pockets within that can be creative. So if someone doesn't want to do that, the internet's there, it's free. Social media's there, it's free, right? You can build a fan base, it doesn't cost any money, right? So you actually, although you're not spending money, you're saving money. You're building a fan base. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to leave the house.
Like YouTube, you know, like a lot of cats make money off just views. Like you could have your band and set up like a YouTube page, get into like AdWords and all that stuff, and you could make money just off like doing live performances on YouTube, just off the ad revenue. I haven't really got into that yet, but Nick, you probably know all about that.
Are there any like gurus that you would recommend for that? People that would help you kind of understand what you have to do, all of the things for somebody that doesn't have experience?
There's a few guys I would recommend. Yeah.
You.
Yeah, me.
Nick Abel.
Well, this is. I'm sorry. I'm cutting myself short. Yeah, this is what I do. So yeah, I do help people in this situation. But yeah, I would urge anyone out there to follow people like, well, Grant Cardone, not really internet based, but kind of, Tony Robbins, Frank Kern, Jeff Walker, Eben Pagan. Like, these are the gurus of the internet marketing world and creating digital products and how to do it, like a strategy. Blueprint to follow these guys, because a lot of the free content, the courses are expensive, but a lot of their free content is enough to kind of learn, and because it is a minefield, as well. But certainly studying with someone like Tony Robbins, even just following his seminars and stuff online, is getting you to take the action as well, because you need to take the action. It's all good to get the knowledge and consume all of this stuff, but if you're not doing the right actions, then you're not going to move forward, so you've got to kind of have that as well, but now's a great time, like, and actually myself, I'm looking more to be an artist and get more into the guitar again and take that somewhere and do something with that, so I'm kind of in that position myself. Well, I know all the strategies and I know all the different things, and even myself, I'm like, I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to do that, but I know that I have to. I know what the results will be, so I know what to do, So I'm kind of like biding my time and practicing a bit again. But yeah. So now's a great time, because things are free with the internet. You don't have to pay for a lot of stuff, and you can make a product, make some music, build a fan base quite easily. And it doesn't cost you any money. It just costs you time. And if you're patient, it'll pay off,
Yeah. Hey, Matt, do you want to go to David Koenig's question for the?
Well, did you have a question, Mike? I kind of stepped on you a little bit.
No. I'm just looking out for David.
Oh yeah.
Still with us.
Well, I do want to give a shout out to Tim Gillette, David Koenig, and Mark Faraski and Pete Anderson out there. Pete was our guest from last week, and great guitar player. And David's question is, how do each of you guys approach producing others versus how you approach your own various projects or performances? Like, as far as like when you get a gig and you're starting to work it out and everything, like how do you approach that? I mean, Tony, you kind of talked about that a little bit as far as, just hammering it out and, but what's your system for that?
I always ask, like, when I produce a record or something for anyone, I always kind of ask them who are their favorite artists, like which like their favorite artists, their favorite tunes, and why, and then try to get inside their head, and then really just give them what they want. You know what I mean? I try not to impose a lot of myself on it, apart from the like sprinkling at the end of it, if you like.
Right.
Just kind of do my thing, but ultimately whatever they want, really. Like, I've done all kinds of rock, pop, country, all kinds of stuff that I don't really listen to, but again, it's just kind of getting inside what they want, really. And
how about you, Nick? As far as production, do you get much into production?
I did it for quite a number of years, electronic music production and surround mixing as well for big art installations. So I've worked to a brief as well and did stuff for TV and film. I don't know, for me it's kind of like I did it quite a bit, but not a lot, not as much as Tony. And I just found each one different, because I was learning kind of as I was doing it. That it's kind of that thing of like jumping in the deep end and just do it. I didn't know how to do it. Right. I just started doing it. I got asked to write the music for a feature film through Indian classical music and an Asian film. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have a clue. I knew I had the tools to do it, but I didn't know how to use them. And I bought a book, Film Scoring, Berkeley Press. I bought that book and I read that, and I just started doing it, and I was learning as I was going. And that's kind of how I did a lot of stuff in my life, is I didn't really know how to do it beforehand. I got the opportunity to do it, and then I was like, all right, shit, like I need to like step up now. Like I need to figure this out, and I managed to figure it out almost every time. So that's kind of been it for me. I've just jumped in at the deep end, or I've said yes.
Say yes and worry about it later.
and worry it up, and then really the work starts. Then is like, I've got to learn how to do this, and then get good at it, and then deliver something.
Well,
all at the same time.
About Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone and all this, but it was also interesting. William Shatner's most recent book was all about just saying yes. He just says his whole career was just about him saying, "Sure, I'll do that." Like his whole career is not to say no. I'm sure he says no on some stuff, but it was just interesting that you just jump in and do it, and if you love the work, you figure out a way to make it happen.
I mean, I'm a big believer in the world that we're in now. There's so much resource out there. Most things are attainable. Most knowledge, the knowledge is there, right? You just got to go out and look for it and be willing to step up and do the work. It's that simple, really.
Yeah, it just comes down to having the idea. I mean, even if you wanted to write a film, a film script, there's formats you can go out and buy. Here's what a film script looks like. Just fill in your own words,
Yes.
Yeah, and it's weird though. It's like, do you get to places where you're like, man, I gotta go ask somebody. Like, I can't. This is my brain. Yeah,
all the time. Yeah.
So you got to be humble about it. Yeah,
all the time. Don't be frightened to ask for help.
Yeah.
You can't reach great heights on your own. Well, maybe you can, but for me, I can't. I have to ask for help,
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, we're at the top of the hour. Went a little bit over, but it's okay because good conversation. I just want to give everybody a chance to say some parting words where people can find you and all that kind of stuff. So, Tony. Oh, sorry. Yeah, get the little. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Yeah.
So, thank you guys for having me on, man. It's good to meet you, and thanks Nick for the hookup, and good to see you as well, man. So you can find me TonyGrayBassAcademy.com. So it's TonyGrey, and Instagram Tony Gray Bass, Facebook, all that stuff. YouTube Tony Gray Bass Academy, I think, and that's about it.
All right, Nick.
And I don't actually have a website. Something I need to have. Well, I do have a business website, which is rockstarmarketing.co.uk. That has all my contact details on there if anybody wants to get in touch.
Yep, and you're on social media as well.
And I'm on social media, just under my name, Nick Abel. Yeah. And Instagram, Facebook, and all of that. Yeah.
All right, Mike, take us home.
Well, just thanks, Tony. Thanks, Nick. This was a great
conversation. Guys.
Hopefully it's been inspirational for some, because we've dealt with stuff other than just going, the instrumental side of things. I love things that are brain food too, which you guys have provided a lot of brain food. So thank you so much for being a part of the show today. It was totally awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you guys are pretty smart for musicians. No, it's good. It's refreshing to have people with that entrepreneurial spirit, and every artist has that to a certain extent, and it's just a matter of cultivating it and taking those risks and those chances, which is what qualifies you to be an entrepreneur. You just got to jump in, say yes, and do it.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things that I love, and this is so true for me as well, and for a lot of people, is Miles Davis. Music can teach you everything you need to know. And for me in my life, everything that I've learned has been through music. I didn't do well at school. My learning started when I got into music.
Me too.
Cool. Well, thanks guys for being on the show. We're going to be doing this every single Thursday at 5 p.m. We may have some one-offs at other times, but we're always going to try to have an episode booked at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or 1 in the morning for you people in the UK, right? So Nick emailed me today. He's like, "Is the interview today?" Because the time change with the midnight
totally
thing.
Threw me off. Yeah, I thought it was Friday. Well, it is Friday.
Yeah. Well, all right. So we're gonna close and wrap it up here. But I'm Matt Gibson, Mike Melinda, Nick Abel, Tony Gray, Kingdom of Rock.
Yes,
you guys. Hope you guys rock it this week, and let us know if you got any questions. kingdomofrockpodcast@gmail.com.
Bye, everybody.
See you later.
Take care.